Hello, friends. The story of any big company can often be depicted as a curved line, as each brand undoubtedly experiences its ups and downs. Some days it's on the verge of a crash, and other times it doesn't leave the pages of business magazines for years. However, the brand that I will talk about today is an exception. It may sound incredible, but the brand has just celebrated its 11th birthday, and at the same time, it has already revolutionized the technology market. And friends, it only took 4 years. As you already understood from the title, today we'll talk about Xiaomi. After all, it's Xiaomi that has the leading position in the production of electronic devices. Besides, don't forget that the company regularly expands its product range, breaking records in sales with annual revenues of an unrealistic $26 billion, and have long left its direct competitors far behind. The founding date of the company is considered to be April 6, 2010, but in fact, the idea of creating his own brand came to the mind of the young entrepreneur long before that. Lei Jun, the man behind the brand, has been among the 10 richest people in China since 2015. Jumping ahead, I will say that like many others, he started from the very bottom, and now we can see the results of his hard work on the infinitely long store shelves. That's what people say about the founder of Xiaomi today. He's one of those people who achieve success by any means. Lei Jun was born in 1969 in the small town of Shantou in the Hubei province. The childhood of the future entrepreneur was rather ordinary and wasn't marked by any striking achievements. There isn't much information about his family either. It's only known that his father was a civil servant. At school, Jun didn't stand out in any way. He was a mediocre student and even went to study computer science at Wuhan University only because he wanted to continue studying together with his friend. That's all we know about this period of Lei Jun's life. It is also worth noting that computer technologies weren't well developed in the PRC at the time, and Wuhan University was one of the first universities in the country that was even working in this direction. Despite the unique chance, Lei didn't seem to be the least bit inspired by projects opening up for him. But he didn't want to be worse than the rest of the students, and therefore he even abandoned his usual routine, which used to include an afternoon nap, and got engrossed in his studies. It was later during his studies that he came to like developing programs, which significantly increased his interest in school, and thus, from that time on, Lei Jun never had problems with academic performance. But there were other problems. You may find it ridiculous, but the university didn't have many computers, and so students had to wait a long time to get their turn on a computer. Despite these difficulties, Lei quickly adapted to the existing conditions and spent most of his time in the computer lab. He learned to take the places of those who didn't come to class and was ready to help, explain, and even do the task for anyone else. Thus, he spent much more time at the computer than his classmates. However, the teachers didn't really like his proactive style, and he got kicked out of class. Strange, isn't it? But the young man didn't give up his attempts and came up with more and more new ways to get behind the computer. And this was only the beginning. During his freshman year, the future entrepreneur came across the Fire of Silicon Valley book, and it was this book that made him think about creating his own business. Soon enough, Lei created the Yellow Rose Society for those who were also interested in computers like he was. All its members were engaged in coding and even managed to profitably sell their development, the BitLock 0.99 encryption software. Anyway, Lei's business success during his studies is often overestimated. For example, there was once a popular story that claimed that Lei Jun became a millionaire while at the university. However, the entrepreneur himself put an end to this legend, explaining that at the time of his studies, even $1,000 was a large amount for him, and of course, he didn't have that much money then. Thus passed Lei's student years, while he was busy searching for a free computer, and in 1991, he graduated from the university with a bachelor's degree in computer science. Well, what's next? Then, as it usually happens, came the job search. Considering that Beijing was developing the fastest at the time, Lei moved there and soon found a job in a research lab. It's also worth saying that he earned an above-average salary there, but as he recalls, he didn't really enjoy working there. The young man wanted to grow, and he was attracted by new and unexplored grounds, and that is why the Zhongguancun area, which was known as China's Silicon Valley, became the future entrepreneur's favorite place in Beijing. Just a year later, Lei decided to change his life drastically because of his strong involvement in the technological life of the capital, and so he quit his rather prestigious job in science. He tried to find access to large technological companies in every possible way, but no one wanted to hire him because he had neither experience nor connections. However, he didn't give up, and his desire and persistence soon had its results. And in November 1991, an exhibition was being held in Beijing, and it was there that Lei Jun met Ku Bongjun, co-founder and vice president of Kingsoft. The young man came as an ordinary visitor and started asking such provocative and clever questions at the manufacturer's counter that Bongjun even invited him to a business dinner. There's no information about their conversation, but apparently Lei made quite an impression on the businessman and soon received an offer to join the Kingsoft team. Today, Kingsoft is the largest developer of office programs and applications such as WPS Office, but back in 1991, the company had only 5 employees. Nevertheless, it still didn't prevent Lei Jun from quitting his permanent job at the lab for a startup, and in 1992, he became the company's 6th employee. Little is known about Jun's early years at Kingsoft. It is known, however, that he was engaged in development and apparently managed his duties rather successfully. After all, the company did grow significantly in the time he worked there, and in just 6 years, Jun had risen from the 6th employee to the head of this very company. Whatever some may say, things didn't go all that smoothly. A huge problem for Kingsoft was privacy software, which deprived it of a significant share of its income. Also, many competitors began to enter the market in the PRC. Nevertheless, Lei Jun successfully handled his responsibilities as the company's leader and gradually began to redirect the company towards the internet sector. In addition to his main job, he also devoted a share of his time to other projects. Thus, in his spare time, he developed and successfully launched an electronic platform for the sale of books, videos, and music, Joyo.com. The service was created in 2000 and was more like the man's personal whim, but in 2004, he sold it to Amazon for an unrealistic $75 million. As experts will later say, it's obvious that Lei was already quite well aware of the internet's potential at the time. However, even the impressive amount of $75 million that seemed to have dropped out of the sky didn't make the man abandon his ambitions, but on the contrary, it made him think about the future. Money is just money. You can spend it quickly or you can invest it successfully, the man thought. And after the successful sale of Joyo.com, he began to make independent investments into various interesting projects. He worked at Kingsoft until 2007, when he successfully completed the company's IPO. By the way, it raised $99 million, which, of course, satisfied all of its shareholders. By that time, the successful manager also owned shares in the company, and therefore, he also made good money. After leaving his post, he retained a seat on the board of directors, and in 2011, he took over as chairman. It's been mentioned that Kingsoft didn't do as well financially after Lei Jun left the post as head of the company. The entrepreneur attributed his decision to leave Kingsoft to the end of the software era and the beginning of the internet era. It just so happened that Jun found the internet to be the most interesting area for his future endeavors. He was in no hurry to create his own company, focusing on investments only at this point. However, to be honest, his investments were impressive. So, as of 2011, he invested in 20 different companies. Moreover, his investment activity wouldn't end in the future, but it would simply get overshadowed by the achievements of Xiaomi. Lei Jun successfully invested in a provider of financial services, Lakala Payment, online clothes trading platform Vansol, as well as UC Web, which had developed the UC mobile browser, the later one getting the most attention from those who researched the entrepreneur's biography. The fact was that he joined UC Web as chairman. In addition, the company became a dominant player in the Chinese mobile browser market. In 2014, Alibaba Group acquired UC Web for a record-setting $3.8 billion. Thus, money stopped being a problem for Lei, and he started planning to create something new, technological, and global. Jun decided to focus on mobile technologies. The company he created was named Xiaomi, which means millet in Chinese, or, in another version, a grain of rice. It's interesting that Lei initially wanted to call the company Red Star, but this name was already taken. The company had 8 founders in total. In addition to Lei Jun himself, his close friend Lin Bin is usually mentioned. He worked at Microsoft and Google before. But even despite the impressive team and Lei Jun's extensive work experience, the entrepreneur was certainly taking risks, because the mobile technology market was successfully shared by the giants of the field, and it was only possible to achieve success in this industry by being able to withstand enormous competition. At the same time, the amount of money that was invested in the new company only seems huge. I mean, it seems huge for us, ordinary people, but not certainly for the opening of a large business and launching a new brand. What's also striking about this whole story is that Lei Jun had become a great example of how startups aren't only for young people. After all, Lei was already 40 years old when he established the company. He already had an impressive bank account and a settled life. What else did he want? That's right, he simply couldn't stop being interested not only in the money, but rather in the process itself. From this moment on, we'll be talking about Xiaomi. Let me say for those who don't know it, the company's first product wasn't a phone, it wasn't even a gadget. It was MIUI firmware for Android smartphones and tablets. It's believed to have combined the best qualities of iOS and Android, and as it turned out, combining the merits of these two operating systems was a good idea, and therefore, MIUI very quickly got a whole army of fans. The popularity of the firmware soon spread beyond the PRC, and Lei Jun realized that his first attempt had worked. MIUI gradually gained recognition as one of the best firmwares in the world and continues to be actively used not only by Xiaomi, but also by other manufacturers. Users were also impressed by the company's approach to its updates, which happens almost every week. It's also worth mentioning that Lei Jun was a big fan of the iPhone and decided to create his own version, but with some modifications. First of all, his aim was to significantly reduce the cost while maintaining all the functionality. In addition, the entrepreneur was going to challenge the well-known stereotype about Chinese products being of low quality. And that is exactly how, in 2011, the company's first phone was launched, Xiaomi Mi 1. The phone was equipped with a dual-core processor with a clock speed of 1.5 GHz, an 8-megapixel camera, and other technical features that made it possible to call the Mi 1 an advanced development of that time. At the time of the release, the phone cost about $317. In order to secure this price, the company abandoned a number of standard approaches, saving on advertising, packaging design, and giving up offline sales altogether. Even now, Lei Jun believes that a really good product does not need flashy advertising campaigns. The main tool for promoting Mi 1 was social networks, and Jun had an impressive number of subscribers. The entrepreneur continues this practice, and even today he willingly communicates with users on Weibo and other social networks, as well as through the Mi Talk channel. This way he gets feedback from a huge audience, which helps him implement new features into his products. Many are surprised how a person, having billions in his bank account and ranked 6th on the Forbes China list, finds time to talk to his followers. I think he just finds it interesting. Initially, the entrepreneur sold his products through the website, but then he found distributors and launched his own retail outlets. Thus, in just 12 minutes and 41 seconds, 150,000 Xiaomi Mi 1s were sold. The company approach to sales improved with time. They began to inform their customers about the technical characteristics of the new model in advance, as well as setting an official date for the launch of its sales on the whole company website. By the way, Xiaomi products are still sold online first and only later in stores, and at a higher price too. It's also interesting that online sales significantly simplify the company's work, allowing it to save money. Xiaomi gets the opportunity to sell its devices directly from the manufacturer and doesn't even need any warehouses. In addition, it takes the company at least 18 months to produce each smartphone, and by the end of this period, its components get much cheaper, which is reflected in the cost of the device. The company even sells some of its smartphones at cost price. This practice seems unprofitable only at first glance. In fact, Xiaomi sells its own mobile apps and services, which also brought in a significant share of the profit. When talking about the interesting services that the company provides, the Mi Talk Messenger should definitely get a mention. In 2016, the Mi Pay payment system was introduced. Also, Lei Jun keeps buying shares in various popular local services, like Youku, the largest video portal in China. However, the most interesting thing is that Lei eventually gave up on the idea of independent smartphone production, having signed the agreements with Foxconn and Inventec. In 2012, several versions of the Xiaomi Mi 1 were launched in a wide variety of body colors, including orange, red, purple, and others. Also in 2012, over 1 million of the Mi 1s were sold. The company set this record in just a year. At the same time, having flooded the market with his product, Lei did something very unusual. which has probably never been done before. When a defect was discovered in the Mi 1, Lei didn't start apologizing and promising to fix everything. Instead, he took immediate action. Many service shops quickly appeared in Beijing, where the company's clients received help absolutely free of charge. This campaign was a good example of the customer-oriented approach in combination with promotion. Thanks to Lei Jun's actions, the company was talked about again, while the information about the defective phones faded into the background. 2012 was marked by the release of the Xiaomi Mi 2. It went on sale in August and immediately attracted public attention. And it was no wonder. The smartphone was positioned as the only phone in the world with a quad-core processor at a cost of only $300. The Mi 2 truly became one of the most affordable phones on the market, and with great specs too. The smartphone was equipped with a 1.5 GHz quad-core processor, an Adreno 320 graphics card, a screen with a resolution of 1280 by 720 pixels, and 2 GB RAM. The first 50,000 Xiaomi Mi 2s were sold through the website in less than 3 minutes. Just imagine these numbers. The same amount was sold through Lei's personal microblog in just 5 minutes. Customers also reserved an additional 1.3 million smartphones. Within 11 months, the company sold over 11 million devices. The Mi 2S version surpassed the sales of the entire Apple line in China for a certain time. In 2012, the company raised $216 million, being valued at $4 billion already. In 2013, the company released several new products, such as the Xiaomi Mi 3 and the budget line of Xiaomi Redmi 1 phones. The product range also widened due to the release of the Xiaomi Mi TV and the announcement of the company's plans to create their own tablets. 19 million smartphones were sold in just a year, and the company became the 5th largest mobile brand in China. This was still far from the top position, which Lei Jun dreamed of, but at the same time, the company had a foothold in the market, and given its growth in sales and financial indicators, it had serious prospects. In 2013, the company announced the opening of its first store in Beijing. It was named Mi Home and looked like an Apple store. Mi Home had 2 special rooms for products for home, the range of which increased significantly by 2017. Another highlight of the store is that it doubled as an exhibition hall as well. It showcased a range of products that customers couldn't buy, but could take a look at. Samples of the new Xiaomi phones were showcased there, but they could only be purchased through the website. By 2016, the company already owned 54 stores. In 2014, the world saw several more new products, including the company's first tablet. However, the most memorable thing was the squabble between the president of Xiaomi, Lin Bin, and the head of Apple's design department, Jony Ive. It all started with an interview where Ive accused Xiaomi of stealing ideas and called the smartphones of the Chinese company just awful. Lin Bin's answer was quite tactful. The company's president noted that Ive was mistaken and that Xiaomi was creating their own unique products. He also suggested that Ive had never used Xiaomi gadgets and therefore offered him to test one of the smartphones for free. Meanwhile, the company was growing every day and expanding its product line. In addition to smartphones and tablets, the company had introduced a number of other products since 2014. The Xiaomi Mi TV 2 with a 49-inch screen, the Mi Box Pro set-top box supporting 4K video, as well as the first fitness tracker, Mi Band 1. Notably, the latter had an incredibly low price, only $13. Over 1 million fitness trackers were sold in the first 100 days. It is probably worth saying that the company is now working on a huge number of products, from smartphone accessories to Wi-Fi routers and TVs. And there is simply no point in talking about all these gadgets. Everyone knows them anyway. Let's get back to Lei's work. Apart from actively expanding the line, he also started buying shares in Chinese service companies. He acquired a stake in Baidu's eKuai video service for $300 million. He also bought a block of shares in the Chinese analog of YouTube, Youku Tudou. Now the company began working on increasing their own content production. Speaking about Lei Jun, one should probably remember his nickname, the Chinese Steve Jobs. And there is really something similar between the two: their clothing style, their way of presenting new products, their ability to borrow good ideas from competitors, and finally, build large companies. However, it is their differences that are much more important. Lei Jun doesn't have the same short temper like Jobs did. He isn't arrogant, and he's willing to do a lot for the sake of his clients. Lei himself speaks highly of Jobs, but at the same time, he argues that the American entrepreneur could hardly have achieved any success in China. According to Lei Jun, American companies need to learn to make compromises in order to succeed here. In a country where much depends on the government, this skill is among the key ones. However, what is really the key common feature of Lei Jun and Steve Jobs is their workaholism. Xiaomi's founder used to work 100 hours a week during the launch of his company, and his schedule still remains tight. Even now, he avoids talking about his personal life and prefers to devote most of his time to his business. However, you can sometimes come across information about his hobbies, one of which is rock climbing. So, that's how it all happened, friends. This person managed to build a world-class company in the most competitive market in such a short time. Many of the company's customers still don't know the right way to pronounce Xiaomi. You can hear a variety of pronunciation options: Xiaomi, 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 Xomi, and even Xiaomi. In fact, it's much simpler. The word consists of two parts, Xiao and Mi, and Xiaomi reads like Xiaomi, with a stress on the second syllable. Lei himself explains that when he was launching the Xiaomi startup, his main motivation wasn't money. He already had enough by then. His main goal was to prove to users all over the world that products from the Middle Kingdom had long stopped being low-quality, mass-production goods. Today, these are high-quality items that are much cheaper than their competition. So the question arises, why pay more? Of course, many still don't really appreciate the products of this brand, giving their preference to Apple or Samsung. In most cases, these are older, established people who prefer the above-mentioned brands because of some inner convictions. The younger generation, however, prefers Xiaomi. And who knows? Perhaps if things go on like this, the American and Korean giants will soon find themselves next to the once well-known Nokia and even Lenovo. So friends, how do you personally feel about this brand? What can you say about it? We would be thrilled to know your opinions, so leave us a comment. Well, that's all for today. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.